Well, hey guys, welcome back to another session of the Call to Manhood. This is session 7, 4 choices to finish the race. And in this session, I want to share with you the 4 choices, or the 4 choices that every man must make if you want to finish the manhood race. Paul wrote an encouragement to all of us guys. He said in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 to 27, he said, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run," he challenges us. Paul says, "run in such a way as to get the prize. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. No, I beat my body and make it my slave so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize." Now later in his life, we discover he certainly was not disqualified. He wrote these words in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." So as I said, in this session, I want to reveal to you 4 choices that every man must make by comparing the lives of 2 really great leaders in the Bible, Samson and David. Okay? And sadly, 2 great leaders, 2 great failures. Let's look at Samson. Judges chapter 13 to chapter 16. God sent Samson to the Israelites as a judge and also to deliver them from their oppression, or their oppressors, who were the Philistines. And Samson took a Nazirite vow, which means he would neither drink any alcohol or ever cut his hair. And because he faithfully kept that vow to the Lord blessed him with great strength. As a public leader, Samson was incredibly successful. He led as a judge, and he settled many disputes among his people. But in his private life, he was a disaster. He sought out so many female companions. He took so many foolish risks. And eventually, he was betrayed at the hands of a woman named Delilah. And the Philistines gouged out his eyes and threw him in a dark prison. David, 2 Samuel chapter 11, we'll look is the main passage. God sent a new deliverer for the Israelite people, and that was David. He was a man born in obscurity. He didn't even understand his destiny, and he also, he did enjoy great military success against the Philistines, and he eventually became king. Interesting, they're both fighting the same enemy, the Philistines. And David did what Samson did not do. David defeated the Philistines for good, and he established a secure border around the land of the Israelites. He created a stable political state for the people of Israel, and he also established a capital city, and he even led a revival of worship of God in Israel. Unfortunately, he also had a weakness for women, and he committed adultery with a woman named Bathsheba. He impregnated her, and he even had a loyal soldier killed to cover up his sin. Well, let's talk about after the failure. Both men suffered great failures, but what about after? See, Samson and David were both great men, and they both suffered a great failure. But after they failed, that's where their lives moved in completely opposite directions. Samson spent his last years alone in bondage and in blindness, and he died a failure. Even though at the end of his life he regained his strength and he killed almost 3,000 Philistines by pushing over 2 pillars in a packed temple, which caused the temple to collapse, he never defeated the Philistines. The Israelites remained under their oppressive rule, and Samson died without fulfilling or accomplishing his mission. David, however, after his failure, he recovered and he became a wiser man. He became a better king, and he died a success and left a great legacy. Well, why the difference between these 2 men? Here's the key difference. David recovered because he could. He had learned to do the things that make recovery possible. Samson did not recover because he could not. He never learned to do the things that make recovery possible. And so what I want to do is consider 4 major differences between these two men and develop 4 keys that are 4 choices for running the race well so that we can actually finish the race. Okay, so four choices to finish the race. Number 1, choose inclusion, not isolation. Okay, see, Samson was a man of isolation. He never bothered to make any friends. Except for his parents. The Bible gives us the name of only one person who ever got close to Samson, and that was Delilah, the woman who betrayed him. David, however, he started out in isolation, even though he had brothers. He spent much of his time alone by himself in the field guarding the flocks, all alone. But in that time of isolation, David spent time getting to know his God and learning to trust his God. But as David grew into manhood, he started to make close friends. The first was Jonathan, the son of Saul. They even made a covenant with each other that outlived their own lives. And having made his first friend, David went on to make many more friends, hundreds or more friends, the weak and the strong. Many of his most trusted friends did exploits that were even greater than his own. David called them his mighty men. Most of his trusted friends did amazing things, and together he and his friends accomplished what no one man could ever have accomplished alone. When Samson fell, he fell alone, surrounded only by his enemies. When David fell, he fell among friends. And it was those friends, especially one courageous godly man named Nathan, who made his recovery possible. The second choice, choose interdependence, not independence. See, Samson was very independent. He loved his freedom. He was constantly on the move. He preferred the company of strangers rather than the familiarity of his family and friends, which he had none. See, he came and he went as he pleased, and he always traveled alone. While David did travel at times as leaders, he rarely traveled by himself. Most of the time he traveled with groups of fellow travelers, his friends. And in fact, David generally preferred to stay at home with his family and friends. The first thing he did after establishing Jerusalem as the capital city was to build a house for himself, a home for himself that was suitable for raising a family and entertaining his friends. Samson was far away from home when his world fell apart. When he was put in chains and thrown into a dark cell, he didn't call for help because he knew that there was no one around him who could and would help him. David, when his world fell apart, he was at home. And even though he fell into sin, David's friends were near to him. And even though he was too weak and too confused during his fall to call out to his friends were still there. His friends could see that he was in trouble, and they came to help him. Choose interdependence, not independence. Number 3, choose reflection, not reaction. What do I mean by that? Well, see, Samson was a doer, not a thinker. He was like your action hero. When trouble came, he didn't take a second to second guess himself. He didn't bother analyzing his motives. He didn't bother agonizing over his mistakes. He knew that all of his problems were caused by other people, and mostly those Philistines. And the best way to deal with them was just to react with overwhelming force because of his great strength. Samson believed that his only security was in his strength, and so he didn't like to show any weakness at all to God, to other people, or even to himself. In his 20 years that Samson led God's people, the Bible only records one prayer, and that was his final desperate plea for strength before his suicidal attack on the Philistines. David, however, left us a long record of all of his prayers, his daily conversations with God. In his prayers, we see a passionate relationship with God, and we see a whole range of human emotions being displayed. Some days David expressed joy and affection and tenderness and praise and worship and faith and trust and confidence. Other days David expressed anger and bitterness and complaint and self-pity and despair. And even at other times, he admitted fear, he admitted shame, he admitted embarrassment, and he admitted confusion. Yes, David was always honest to God, and he was usually honest to others. He was committed to self-examination, reflection, not reaction. But he also knew that he would never overcome his own heart issues without the help of God and without the help of other men also. He was not afraid to appear weak. He was not afraid, or he did not try to appear to be perfect. And he always kept his heart open so that it could be examined and corrected by his close friends around him and by God. He chose reflection, not reaction. And number 4, choose strategy, not strength, guys. See, both Samson and David were aware that they'd been given an enormous mission. They were both chosen to deliver Israel, which proves they were not ordinary men. Both were very different and very gifted, okay? They were very gifted, but they led in very different ways. Everything Samson did, he did in a big way with his strength. He never thought small, and he never took just tiny steps or small steps. Samson started his career by killing 1,000 Philistines in one day. Another day, Samson caught 300 foxes and used them to burn down Philistine crops. David, on the other hand, began his career by killing just one man, but David killed the right man, the strategic man, Goliath. And it changed the tide of battle. From that point on, David's battles against the Philistines was very strategic, but it was also a strategy working with a team. And his team eventually won. Samson looked for a way to atone for his failures at the end of his life. And so he decided to go out with a big bang. He decided he was going to kill a record 3,000 Philistines in a day. As we know, he pushed over those pillars and the temple fell down on those 3,000 people. But you know what? When the dust cleared, Samson was dead. The Philistines were still in charge, and Samson had left no legacy. David faced a similar temptation at the end of his life. He wanted to go with a big bang too, so he decided to atone for all of his failures by building God a temple. That's what God, let's build God this amazing, majestic temple. What a great legacy that was going to be. But you know what? He listened to God, and God said, no, David, that's not the legacy that I want you to leave. Instead, I have a different strategy for you, David. Prepare your son to build the temple. Give him everything that he will need to build it, and devote your remaining days to being a godly father, and that will be your great legacy. Isn't that amazing? Choose strategy, guys, not strength. Do the wise things, not the big things, the impressive things. Summary. How do we run the race well so that we can finish the race as men? Well, we have to make 4 choices. We have to choose inclusion, not isolation. We have to let other men into our lives and not be by ourselves. We have to choose interdependence, not independence. We have to work together with other men to really grow. We have to choose reflection, not reaction. We have to keep our hearts open. We have to let people speak into our lives and let God speak into our life. And we need to choose strategy, not strength. We need to be wise as we build, not just build impressively, but without any real clear strategy in life. Guys, if you've been living like a Samson up to this point, it's time to learn how to live like David so that you will run the race well and finish the race and leave a great legacy after you've gone. Let me pray for you, then I have an assignment. God, I just pray that every man will make these 4 choices. God, if they haven't made these choices yet, God, let today be the day. Lord, they would choose inclusion, not isolation. They would make friends. They would have other people in their lives. And once they have friends, they would choose interdependence, not interdependence. They would rely on their other friends and work together with other friends and work together as teams and accomplish much more. Lord, they would choose reflection, not reaction. They would keep their hearts open. They would allow other people to speak into their lives and give them correction when necessary. And they would choose strategy, not strength. They would not do the most impressive things. They would do the most important things. And in doing so, they would leave a great legacy. God, I bless them in Jesus' name. Your assignment, guys, is look at the 4 choices that you must make to finish the race. And answer the question, which choices have you already made? Which of those 4 choices have you already made? Which choices have you not made or not built into your life? And choose now and commit your life to apply the 4 choices. We have one more session coming up, session 8, where we put it all together to give you an overview and a summary of how to be called up and live as a real man in today's society. God bless you. See you next time.